Morning and welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. Today I'm going to be sharing with you week number 48 of our 52-week series of Scrappy blocks. Can't believe it's already at week 48. This time is flying. But I've got kind of an unusual block today, a really simple one. It's basically a 4-patch unit with 2 squares and 2 half-square triangles. And I have a couple of blocks made up. This started out because we are doing some generosity quilts at our guild for children in rescue homes, etc. And so I wanted to put something together that would go together quickly for them. And so I've put this one, I've started playing in my EQ8, and I've designed a quilt which I'm calling Let's Dig. It is simply using these 2 blocks and these 2 color combos. This one happens to be black, red, and green, but what this reminds me of are those Tonka toys and the backhoes with the shovels that dig down into the dirt. I don't know if you have any nieces, nephews, grandchildren who love digging in the dirt with their Tonka toys, but that's what this brought to mind. It reminds me of my nephew who used to love digging in the dirt with his Tonka backhoe. And so that is what I'm creating here. It's called Let's Dig, and I hope that you'll have fun with this. All right, so what I'd like to share with you now is how this block goes together really fast, really simple. And you, of course, can make these in any size you want. All of the blocks that I'm making for this sampler quilt they finish here at 12.5 inches, so that in the quilt, they'll finish at 12 inches. But you can make this half this size. What I'm pulling are squares here that are 6.5 inches. You could certainly pull squares that are 3.5 inches, and your block would end up being a 6.5 inch block that you'd put together in the quilt, and it would finish at 6 inches. But there's so many ways you can make this. You don't necessarily always have to use the sizes that I'm giving you, but again, the sizes that I'm giving you for each of these in this series of 52 weeks is for a 12.5 Scrappy block. Now let's take a look at what I have here. Don't forget to pull the PDF that is listed below in the description box. You want to either print it or save it to your computer or laptop, but just make sure you have that. It gives you the instructions, and of course the video will also do that, and then always give you a fun quilt on the back. And for this quilt, I do indicate that you'll want to make 11 of both of these blocks. They're the same block, it's just different colorways, and that will allow you to actually make this fun Let's Dig quilt. Now let's check out the supplies you need. Let's take a look at what we have here. On the PDF, you'll notice that what I'm offering here in the number of squares to pull, that will create 2 of your blocks. So just keep that in mind. And I've cut a lot of extras here because I'm going to complete a quilt here. I'll get that done later on in the week, but I do have 6.5 inch squares in the light, medium, and dark, and 7 inch squares in the light, medium, and dark. And my dark in this case is the blue. In the picture here, it's showing as black, but you can use any colors you want. It doesn't matter what you use. It's totally up to you. And this is going to be my border. And so the 6.5 inch squares will just remain 6.5 inch squares, but the 7 inch squares will become the half square triangle units that you see in this block. So let's take a look at how I do my half square triangle units. It's something that you have seen over and over. I call this my Speedy Solutions techniques to make half square triangles. All right, so I have put a dark and a medium right sides up on the table, and these are the 7 inch squares, which I will use to make the half square triangles. Then I'm taking my light, which in my case is a green, and I'm putting them right sides together with those 2 squares. And I am simply going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. And then I'm going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides of that diagonal line. I'm going to do it all in assembly line fashion. In fact, what I recommend that you do, pair up all your 7-inch squares, right sides together, get them all paired up on the tabletop, then draw all of the lines, the diagonal lines, then take the whole thing to your sewing machine and sew them in assembly line fashion so that you're sewing down one entire side of the entire grouping and then back up the other side of the entire grouping, a scant 1/4 inch from that drawn line, and then you'll cut them apart and trim off the dog ears, and I'll show you that. Let me get these sewn and I'll bring them back to the tabletop. So here we have the 2 units sewn together, as you can see. It's on the dark side, you can see it better. Here you can see the diagonal line, and that's where I will cut them apart. You can't see the stitching as well, but on the back you can see the stitching. And you can either use your rotary cutter or a scissors. What I like to do, and I've shown this to you many times, I like to cut from stitching line to stitching line before I separate them, and that just gets rid of the dog ears. Let me flip it over so you can see it easier. So I've gotten rid of the dog ears on each side, and then I will simply use a rotary cutter and cut on the drawn line to separate them. And I'm going to go down here and do that with this side. And there we go. So we've gotten rid of some of the dog ears there. Now I'm going to cut them apart, and then we're going to square them up to 6.5 inches. All right, so I have them separated. Each square created 2 half square triangle units, as you can see there. So I have enough for each of the blocks here. So now what I'm going to do, I'm putting it up on this rotating mat, so it's easier for me to show you this. And I am using my Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer. I'm using trimmer A, which has the 1/2 inch increments, and I'm going to be using the whole thing because 6.5 inches is what I need to square this up to. So I am going to lay that dotted line or the stitching line on the ruler, on the stitching line on the unit here, and then got to get on top of it here so I can see. Then I am going to simply trim away the excess, the little dog ears on that side, and there we go. So it's ready. Now I am going to press it open. I am probably going to press it to the dark. You can certainly press the seam allowances open if you choose. If you do that, you might want to have started with a smaller stitch length, maybe a 2.0 stitch length. And that will just ensure that the seams don't pop open when you're quilting your quilt. So let's go ahead and get one more of these trimmed up here. All right, there we go. So there's 2 of them. I'm going to trim the other 2 up, and I'm going to press them, and I'll bring it back and lay it out on the table. So I'm following the diagram in the PDF to lay out my squares. So here is one block. We have the 2 half square triangle units, a green square and a dark square. And this one is basically the opposite colorway. We have the green square and the medium square red, and then we've got our half square triangle units that have the darks with them. So these are the 2 blocks. I'm going to go ahead and piece them together by webbing them as I normally do, and that one involves bringing this up to the sewing machine, sewing a scant 1/4 inch, bringing this up to the sewing machine, sewing a scant 1/4 inch. I'll have webbed that together, then I'll open it up, and these will be sewn together, then I'll flip it together and sew the long side here. I'll do the same with this block. I'm going to go ahead and web them, and I'll bring them back here to the tabletop. So I have 4 of these blocks finished, and I have them pressed, and I have them squared up to 12.5 inches. And I need to cut some threads here, I see. But there's so many layouts that you could create with this block. It is a lot of fun. So I challenge you to make some of these blocks up and start playing with it. here is one layout that you could put together. And this in itself, just the 4 blocks, is a nice size wall quilt with a border. You could add a border on there. How fun would that be? But what I'm going to do is continue making more of these blocks so that I can create the Let's Dig layout for the quilt. And all you'll need to do is follow the layout here. It's 5 rows down, 4 rows across of the blocks, and you want to create 11 of each, and it's a really good size quilt. I forgot to put the size on there. I will look that up and let you know. I'll make sure to include that in the description so you'll know the size of this quilt and how large it will end up being. But I challenge you to make this block. I hope you'll have fun with it, and I want to see designs that you have created out on my Facebook page. I just want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to do this very simple block, and I can't wait to see different designs that you've all come up with. I do want to mention, make sure that you grab that PDF that's below in the description box. And if you are new to my channel and you have not got your scrap stash all cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use to make beautiful quilts, I will link a video below that will take you through step by step on how you can do that. I also have a book set. This is the Techniques book that teaches you step by step how to cut, sort, organize, get your scrap stash ready to go to make beautiful quilts. There are 5 additional scrappy patterns in here and 12 beautiful scrappy patterns in this. And I do have this set out on my website. I'll have a link to that, as well as my Facebook link, where I am hoping to see lots of pictures of quilts that you've all come up with. I know many of our guilds do like to create children's quilts for our generosity projects, so I'm hoping to see some beautiful quilts from all of you. So until next time, have a wonderful week and happy quilting.